to Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles, and I am your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. Got a jam-packed program for you today. A little later in our program, we're going to hear from our El Paso correspondent, Julian Resendez. He's got an interesting feature story about how Venezuelan migrants are making it work and making it happen just on the other side of the Rio Grande in Mexico. So we're going to check in with him in just a little bit. Our South Texas correspondent, Sandra Sanchez, got some new information on crime data that has to do with the border. So we're going to hopefully dispel some myths and rumors about what crime is actually like down here along the Rio Grande. And in just a few moments, we're going to bring in ValleyCentral.com investigative reporter Dave Hendricks to talk about a massive immigration operation that spanned all 4 counties here in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, we wanted to take a look at some of the headlines making news across the border, starting with elusive Mexican drug lord Ismael El Mayo Zambada has pleaded guilty in a U.S. courtroom. Now, Zambada pleaded guilty to federal charges related to his role in the violent drug trade that for years flooded the U.S. with cocaine, heroin, and other illicit drugs. The longtime leader in the Sinaloa cartel entered his plea on Monday in a Brooklyn federal courtroom. Prosecutors have said they're not going to seek the death penalty against the 75-year-old Zambada. He was arrested in Texas last year, you may remember. Prosecutors say that under his leadership and that of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the Sinaloa cartel evolved from a regional player into the world's largest drug trafficking organization. Also happening, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, whose case has become somewhat of a flashpoint in President Donald Trump's aggressive efforts to remove non-citizens from the U.S., is once again in the custody of immigration authorities in Baltimore. There are no efforts to deport him after a brief period, after a brief period of freedom. This time he would be sent to the country of Uganda, a country he's never been to before. Garcia's attorneys quickly filed a lawsuit to fight his deportation until a court has heard his claim for protection, stating that the U.S. could place him in a country where his, quote, safety cannot be assured. The lawsuit brought about a blanket court order that automatically pauses deportation efforts for 2 days, and this order applies to immigrants in Maryland who are challenging their detention. Now to that story I was just telling you about. Late last week, federal law enforcement from ICE, Border Patrol, FBI, and several other alphabet letter agencies from the federal government launched what they are calling Operation Pickoff. Now, on Monday, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, Nicholas Ganjei, is right there on your screen. You just saw him, said that the operation that began Thursday is just the beginning. More than 275 different federal agents from 7 different agencies worked in teams to place people into custody. An FBI agent told reporters that this operation has been in planning stages for months and that it's part of a larger initiative dubbed Summer Heat. It's described by the FBI as a strategic push to prevent violent crime during the summer months. Ganjei's office says a total of 78 people were taken into custody over the last few days. Most of them are appearing in federal court not too far away from here in McAllen, Texas, about a 35-minute drive. According to the information provided to us, 65 people were arrested who are allegedly in the country without permission after having already been removed in the past. The U.S. Attorney's Office also says 11 more people who weren't initially targeted were arrested. The FBI agents saying that they were found to be in the country illegally or otherwise wanted by law enforcement.
If there's a criminal offense and somebody's here illegally, we are going to look at them as part of this investigation. You know, I think one thing we should dispel, I know that maybe over the past few years there's been sort of a readjustment of expectations, I think falsely, and a false understanding of the law that coming to this country illegally, that you're allowed to stay so long as you don't commit other offenses. And that's wrong. That's not what the law says.
Now I want to bring in our ValleyCentral.com investigative journalist, Dave Hendricks, to speak with us. Dave, you've been in the courtroom following this since last week. You've been in and out providing all these reports. We have heard from others say that the U.S. Attorney's Office had requested probation information from the county. Do we know what they were using that information for exactly?
No, we don't. So the probation office in Hidalgo County, it's really now called the Community Supervision and Correctional Department, received a request for information at some point earlier this year from the federal government. And after running that by their attorneys, they released it to the government. We don't know what they used that for. But we did see that many of the people arrested during this operation were on community supervision. And so that raised some questions about whether that was the source of this information, and perhaps that information may have been used to come up with a list of targets for the operation.
Now, we're hearing that, this is a summer-long operation. Do we expect them to pump the brakes on anything that we've seen over the last week or so?
So this is part of like an FBI initiative, Summer Heat, but I don't think it's just going to be this summer. It's, according to the U.S. Attorney, something that they're going to do throughout the Southern District of Texas, which is a 43-county area that runs from like Houston to the Rio Grande Valley. And so it's possible we'll see this go on for months or years from now. I mean, this operation, it looks like they started planning it at least in April, perhaps earlier. And the arrest just took place on the 22nd on Friday. So it's very possible that it would take a significant amount of time to do this in the rest of the district.
Now, I just want to bring up for some context, you've been reporting here for quite some time now. In just a moment, once this flashes by the screen, we're going to see the map where all the different locations they hit were. Have you ever seen something, an operation down here, especially when it comes to immigration of this magnitude?
Not that they've talked about publicly, no.
Now, when we talk about this summer heat going on and potentially going even past the summer, has there been any word on whether federal authorities would ask local authorities for more help when it comes to different analytics, as we discussed just now, probation information, for example?
Not that we're aware of. I mean, we did ask during the news conference, right, how targets were selected for this operation, how they decided to arrest these particular people. They wouldn't tell us. So it's very possible these requests have been received by other probation offices in other parts of the state already. We just don't know about it.
And as far as probation offices here locally, has there been any word from them about whether or not they will keep providing that information, or if there's any legal loophole that would, that they could say prevents them from doing that in the future?
So we spoke with one of our state district judges. In most counties, there's a board of judges that oversees the probation office. And so they play a large role in the operations of the department. And they're also the people that place people on probation, right? Mm-hmm. And so we don't know how they might react to that in the future. But generally, if you receive a federal grand jury subpoena, you don't have a lot of options. You're required by law to turn that information over.
Now, as far as the size and the scale of this operation, a total of 78 individuals were taken into custody, but if I'm not mistaken, not all of them were actually targets during the operation.
That's right. There were 65 people who were charged with illegal re-entry, which is a felony, which means they had been deported before and they had returned to the United States without permission from the government. There were 2 people that were charged with illegal entry. In both cases, those people had been voluntarily removed from the United States before. They had not been deported, and so they were charged with a misdemeanor. And then during this operation, there were 11 people that agents came across who happened to be in the country illegally, and so they were detained as well. So that's how we got up to 78.
I know it's really early, processing 78 people in the span of, 48, I think, total business hours for the government. Have we heard of any cases of potential self-deportation when it comes to some of the folks that were caught and maybe this is their first offense?
Those 11 people perhaps were offered the opportunity to self-deport. We don't know. They weren't charged with a crime, so we don't know their names and we don't know the outcome of their cases.
So that's one thing, those folks, we probably won't know any outcome for them going forward then.
No, probably not.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your reporting on this, Dave. I know you're probably going to be staying on top of it for a very, very long time, so we appreciate you joining us today, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Now, stay with us because when we come back, our South Texas correspondent, Sandra Sanchez, is going to be talking about one of my favorite things, data, and specifically, it's crime data. So stay with us. Border Report Live is back in 1 minute. To Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles, and I am your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of Deep South Texas. And joining us now, someone that knows this area very well. It's our South Texas correspondent, Sandra Sanchez. Hey, Sandra.
Hey, Rudy.
Hey, so one of the things that just came out recently was some very important crime data that's released annually. We know that Congressman Henry Cuellar of two districts over from us, or one district over from us here in, two in Cameron County. Sorry, I get my counties confused sometimes.
Hidalgo and Starr. I'm sorry, not Hidalgo, Starr. Starr is Zapata y Webb.
And so tell us a little bit about the data.
Yeah, well, actually, the FBI released its statistics in early August, but every year Congressman Cuellar crunches this data, and basically he tries to dispel this perception that the border is a very dangerous, violent place. And, in the several years that I've been covering him, he actually does it. I mean, the numbers show. We have some graphics that we can pull up that show the murder rates and the crime rates. And what we're looking at here is the murder rates in Texas. And you can see that the McAllen rates and the Laredo rates are, significantly across the border. El Paso, McAllen, Laredo, Brownsville, Rio Grande City, significantly lower than other cities. Now, he does kind of pull out and select certain cities: Houston, Dallas, Baltimore, Detroit, Cleveland, Washington, D.C., all much higher murder rates. I mean, look at Rio Grande City. There were 0 murders in 2024. This is fiscal 2024. So what the data shows is that the violence really is decreased here. The national murder rate in fiscal 2024 was 5 per every 100,000 people. And that was down slightly from 5.7 in fiscal year 2023. And a lot of the cities did see slight drops. In fact, Washington, D.C., which has the National Guard in it now because President Trump says it's very dangerous. Their murder rate actually dropped from 38.88 in fiscal 2023. It dropped, and so it had been 38.88 in fiscal 2023, and it dropped to 25.5.
Yeah, it's a 13-point drop there.
Yeah, so, we did appreciate some of that. So now, murders aside, we also studied violent crime rates along the border. And there were some crimes. Some border cities had lower rates than the national average. The national average in fiscal 2024 was 359.1 per 100,000 people. But Laredo and Brownsville actually had higher violent crime rates, slightly than the national average. Interestingly, Congressman Cuellar didn't emphasize that point in his press conference yesterday in Laredo, but later. But
it is a point that local police departments here in the Rio Grande Valley often point to. I know for Brownsville and McAllen, both of those cities, I think they were on a 10-year stretch of violent crime actually decreasing year over year.
Yeah. Well, El Paso actually, they saw a drop in violent crime. Laredo's crime rate was 365.84, and that was down from 425.66 in fiscal 2023, but still above the national average. Interestingly, Laredo Mayor Victor Trevino said that he really credits Mexican police that are beefing up security south of the border, and also a new rule that was put into effect in Nuevo Laredo, their sister city, requiring license and registrations of vehicles. He says many vehicles were being stolen in Laredo and then taken across the border into Nuevo Laredo, and he says that's dropped significantly. So rules there affect what's happening here, and but as far as like murders, the numbers are very diminished compared to national averages in other cities, and one would think it would help to dispel this myth of the border being this lawless area, but there still is, unfortunately, that perception.
Yeah, and it's a perception. I'm big on social media, and we see that all the time. You'll see us posting about something that's happening here, and a random person will actually. I'll use a perfect case. A couple years ago, there was an allegation by an actress that was at South Padre Island filming a movie here locally, a small film here locally. She is a relatively well-known actress who said that she thought she was about to be trafficked by potentially trafficked by a cab driver pulling up to her resort on South Padre Island. We checked with South Padre Island Police. We checked with the Cameron County Sheriff's Department, which is South Padre Island's part of Cameron County. We checked with other local police, Brownsville Police, which we just mentioned on that list from Congressman Cuellar. And the result was there's been no reportings of any potential kidnappings or human smuggling by anybody, especially not out at the island. But the comments on her TikTok page were just nothing but, why would you go there? It's too dangerous. It's lawless. It's the Wild West. And that's not the reality. And the reality is in the numbers that we're seeing from the FBI.
Right. Absolutely. I've lived here since 2013. I love it here, the culture, the border, but it is not for everyone. And there are some people who feel like this area is dangerous. I don't. And I think the numbers speak for themselves. I think we have Congressman Cuellar making a comment about what these numbers mean. Do we have that?
Yes.
If there's a criminal offense and somebody's...
So let's take pride in what those facts show. Texas border communities, started off with Laredo, are safer than many of the America's largest non-border communities. Safer than the national crime rate, both in murder and in violent crimes. That's not just a good headline. That's good for the families. Safer streets mean stronger schools, stronger communities. They mean more jobs. And that means more peace of mind when you go to work, when you send your kids off to school, and when you walk to church on a Sunday. That's the kind of community we all want to live in. That's the kind of community we're building together, all of us. So I say to all law enforcement, thank you, and God bless you for the work that y'all do. Thank you.
Now, he held that press conference at City Hall, and he invited lots of first responders, obviously. And, he, like I said, he's been doing this for 11 years. We've been covering the data, and we've kind of compiled our own analysis, and it's all on borderreport.com, as well as a link to the FBI's latest data. You can find it there.
So make sure to visit borderreport.com to get that information. Thank you so much today. South Texas correspondent Sandra Sanchez joining us this afternoon. All right. Well, stay with us, because when we come back, we have our El Paso correspondent Julian Resendez with a very special feature about how Venezuelan migrants are making it work just on the other side of the border. Stay with us. We're back in a minute. Welcome back. My name is Rudy Mireles. I am your host, and joining me now is our El Paso correspondent, Julian Resendez. Julian, an incredibly interesting story. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you've been working on.
Rudy, good to be back. Let me tell you, over the past 6 years here at the U.S.-Mexico border, more than 8 million people from all over the world, especially Latin America, have shown up. And their intent, for the vast majority of them, was to cross into the United States and make a new life. Now, just south of us here in El Paso and Juarez, Mexico, we found several examples of migrants who really break down the stereotype that all that migrants want is to come to the border and come to the United States. These are Venezuelan professionals. One is a doctor. One is an oral surgeon. The other one is a businessman. And one more who is into digital film and media. They all came to Mexico during the presidency of Hugo Chavez, when he began nationalizing a lot of private industry, when the economy started to tank. And they decided that being here on the border, on the Mexican side, was good enough, not only good enough for them, but they actually found themselves more at home with people who may not be of their same nationality, but certainly who speak their language, who share a lot of their customs, sometimes their religion. And they started from the ground up. One of them earned a college degree while he was here. The other one kind of relied on his skills to build a massive company that provides what is his number one employer, which is the maquiladora plants. And one more, just use his skills as his training in the medical field to start a business that gives jobs to at least 10 Mexican nationals.
And for these people, like you said, the story is so often, they're trying to make it here to the U.S., but are there any programs there that are helping these people kind of, for lack of better terms, assimilate to, living in Mexico now?
Definitely. There has been a push in the last 5-6 years to integrate some of the migrants from other countries who come to Mexico, to the Mexican border, into the local economy, especially at a time that maquiladoras, the U.S. rum plants operating south of the border, were in dire need of labor. There was a time that the labor shortages ran into the thousands. So the plan was, all right, we'll make it easy for them. We'll give them a chance to apply for, first of all, the humanitarian visas, so they're in Mexico legally, and then get them to apply for the Mexican permits. And several businesses, not just in Juarez, but in other parts of Mexico, began with this outreach effort. And some of them were hired. At some point, we reported here, maybe 3 years ago, that up to 100 people had found jobs. Migrants waiting to see what happened with them and their families, stayed, got jobs. The problem is that most of them, as soon as they had an opportunity to enter the U.S., left. So that's what makes these individuals that I had the opportunity to talk to recently very, very unique. One of them, the oral surgeon, in particular, had some very strong words for his countrymen. He said, well, I came in here, started from the bottom, built it up, and that's the way you got to do it, no matter where you go. There's a lot of countries on the way from Venezuela to the U.S. Whose economies are in better shape, and where you can accommodate your skills, and you will feel at home sharing the culture, sharing the language. So he's kind of surprised that most people don't do it. And like I said, he had some strong words for some of his countrymen, some who just are sold on an American dream that may no longer exist for them right now. Let's hear from him.
Nos tenemos que adaptar.
We have to adapt. The one who is coming in needs to adapt. The one who lives here has no obligation. We have an opportunity. Take it. You crossed so many countries that are in better shape than Venezuela. The problem is someone sold us the lie that things are better in the United States. That is the best sold lie in many years. It's not true. Those who haven't traveled have that idea. We should help those who really need help, and those who need help are the ones willing to work.
Now, let me add some context to that. What he means is, after he settled in Mexico, he's had the opportunity to visit the U.S. Mm-hmm. And he sees several things. Number one, the language barrier very often keeps some of his professional countrymen from really moving up in the labor market in the U.S. Also, there's the different culture. Latin American culture is very family-oriented, very social. And in the U.S., they find a very individualistic culture, a very self-centered culture. And that's also something that he says he wasn't interested in.
And, it's very interesting because I've spoken to migrants that were smuggled from countries in South America, and that's almost the same exact message. You don't have to do this. You don't have to go to the U.S. There are places that you can stop along the way.
Yes, and that has to do with something I've been saying for years out here in On Border Report, that it's not just the migrant making a decision and finding his way to the U.S. There's always another party in the dance. And that is the smugglers who, like the oral surgeon says, sell you the lie that it's going to be easy to go to the U.S., that you're going to be able to make it, that everything's going to be fine. My subject said, number one, that's not really true. And number two, even if you make it to the U.S., it's the same thing. You got to start from the bottom. You got to work very hard, and you're going to find a lot of difficulties, starting with the language and the cultural barrier.
Now you mentioned
and the status, and the legal status better.
Mm-hmm. You did mention that one person was able to finish their education. We only have about a minute left, but could you tell us a little bit about how they were able to do that?
Yeah, fantastic. This man came to the border while he was still very young. So he enrolled in a Mexican university. He completed his studies in computer technology, but he still had a creative urge. So he got a visa to study at the University of Las Cruces, New Mexico, and New Mexico State University. And he went there and he earned a degree in digital media that has allowed him to do a lot of cutting edge stuff here on the border for his employer, which are the McAllens.
Well, that's very interesting stuff. We appreciate your reporting on this, and folks at home, if you'd like to learn more about this story that Julian has been working on, you can find more information at borderreport.com. Thanks for joining us today, Julian.
My pleasure.
All right, and thank you at home for joining us as well. We'll see y'all tomorrow.